My apologies. Now, look, Trevor Garard is on the phone for us today. He's the president of the Orchid Club of South Australia. And I've got a couple of questions I wanted to ask Trevor because of a fertiliser that we use on our orchids. Thanks for being on the show today, Trev.
Thanks, Graham, and it's nice to be here.
How long have you been growing orchids, champion? And most people I know that grow orchids fell out of a pram and fell into an orchid pot. Is that the case for you?
Not quite. I had a previous life as an electrician, but I've been growing orchids now as about 20 years, and I've had about 3,000 mature plants over time in different places around the yard. But yeah, it's been about 20 years that I've been growing them.
Now, look, in your opinion, what's the easiest orchid to grow for my listeners that maybe someone's never grown an orchid before? They get enticed with these beautiful flowers, but sometimes there are easier ones than what we see around in the shops.
Yeah, well, probably the easiest one for outdoors all around Australia would be the Cymbidium orchid. With modern hybridising, these plants can flower any time of the year, not just winter and spring like they used to. And for indoors, you could try the Phalaenopsis, or commonly called Moth Orchid. They've been a very, very popular, easy-to-grow indoor plant. Yeah,
wasn't it amazing? Back in the 60s, when I was a kid, they told me, you got to have a glass house and heating and cooling and blowing and blah, 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 blah. Now we grow them on our windowsill and enjoy them. Many people who buy or are given an orchid are disappointed that it doesn't repeat flower the following season. Now, I get these calls here. Listen up, listeners, because Trev's got some answers here. Can you offer some tips on how to overcome this non-flowering after you buy it in flower and it never does it again?
Depending on the type of orchid, but the main reason they don't flower is you're not giving them quite enough light, and they need a temperature drop. That's a place for Phalaenopsis orchids or moth orchids and the Cymbidiums. We like to get them cold, the Cymbidiums cold around December, and then give them enough light. Your leaves got to be lime green, not lush dark green. If they're dark green, you think you're growing them well, but you'll never flower them. And probably much the same for the Phalaenopsis. You need them lime green as well, and not too much light, just a shadow over the leaf. If you put your hand about 6 inches, 150 mil over the leaf and just get a shadow, that'd be about right for them.
Now, what about the feeding?
Yes, well, most orchids use a inert medium, so there's not a lot of nutrients in the potting mix. Or I mean to say potting mix, most of them are growing bark. Or coconut husk.
Yeah, bark chips and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, because most of them are epiphytes, and they grow on trees, not in pots in the wild, of course. And so they need a bit of feed. We use Neutrog striped back for orchids, and that gives you all the nutrients you need for optimum growth and flowering. So it's also fantastic for flowering plants as well, not just orchids, any flowering plant.
Yeah, I've actually used Strikeback, and I remember when Neutrog asked me to do some trials on it at the garden clinic years ago. I got flowers on Cymbidiums that hadn't flowered for about 5 or 6 years. They should have gone into the compost, but they didn't. I just kept them, and I thought, well, I'll really put this product to test on my plants. And the Strikeback for orchids worked an absolute treat. Now, what other Neutrog products would a typical orchid grower use, Trev?
Apart from the strike back, sea mungus, which is a root tonic. A lot of people make the mistake of thinking that's a fertiliser. It's not. It's actually a tonic. And, of course, go-go juice, which is good for anywhere, potted orchids or your garden, just to enrich your soil. They're available anywhere. Yeah. They're easy to find.
Yeah. Brilliant. And if someone wanted more information on growing orchids, where should they look, champ?
Well, go straight to the Orchid Club of South Australia website or Facebook page. If there's a contact button there, it'll come to me, I would think. Most inquiries come through to me, but the chap that runs the website will look at the inquiry and say, so-and-so's best place to answer this, but most of them come through to me because I handle the publicity and education side of it, the Orchids in Schools program we run. So, yeah, the Orchid Club of South Australia website or Facebook page, or you can go to a local one if you want. A local orchid club is good.
Trevor, thank you very much for your time and explaining little few tips there for orchid growers on the program this morning, mate. So that's if you're looking for Strikeback for orchids or sea mungus or go-go juice, you'll get them at Bunnings and other hardware outlets and, of course, all good garden centres. Have a great weekend, Trev.